Hey, hello, and welcome to segment 9 of Plato is Still Relevant, an annotated summary of Plato's Republic. In segment 8, we finished up with a founded city. We had our city founded. It was basically 3 principles upon which he founds his perfect city. Today, we are going to, remember, we're hunting for justice. We're going to say if a city, or Plato's going to say that if a city is perfectly founded, it should have the four Greek virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. We are going to define justice by looking at the 3 classes of a city, and then make the argument that the 3 classes of the city match an ideal soul or individual soul. For a person reflects the city they belong in. The city creates the well, first the people create the city, then the city creates the next generation, and it's an interchange, kind of an interchange between socialization and individuation. So let's first start with the idea that he's founded a city. And it's 3 principles. 1, everybody does what they're naturally fit to do. Everybody has an innate ability. Now they must be given conditions in which those innate abilities can flower. We're all plants. We all need nourishment from each other, but we all have a unique talent that we can all help each other to, how do we say this? Enable each other to flourish, to grow, or to flower, or to bear fruit. Secondly, he says, look, you can't just write down laws and expect people to follow them. Number 1, written laws tend to make people self-indulgent. I can get around that law. That law isn't any good. It doesn't mean anything. Written laws, he didn't have much respect for. Plato, Socrates argues it's the course set by education. And of course, education is the entire socialization process, and at the backbone is that balance between a healthy body, gymnastics, and a healthy spirit, poetry. And maintaining that balance, then you won't need laws. Good men don't need laws. Good men, poetry men, don't need laws, women also. Healthy people with a proper gymnastics don't need doctors. And if you remember what he said, when lawyers and doctors are the most highly paid people and most respected professions in your city, you have a poorly educated city. So we've got 2. Everybody's does what they're naturally fit to do. Writing laws won't do it. It's all about the course set by education. And then 3, and we'll get back to this in just a minute, we'll have one religion, the Delphic oracle of Apollo. And like I said, we'll get back to this notion of divine inspiration. I think it's more of a, I think it's experienced today more than we think it is. But again, I said we'll get back to that. All right, so here he goes. He goes, look, if our city is perfectly founded, that is our city of words, it should have the 4 Greek virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. So let's look at our city and let's find out the 4 virtues. The clearest is wisdom. You know, a city is declared wise or foolish depending on how it is ruled. But there's a funny thing about wisdom. It's strange. The wisdom of a city depends on the smallest segment of the population, or the smallest part of a city. I mean, even in America, what are there, 300 million plus? How many, mayors, senators, congressmen, delegates? Nowhere near a million. I mean, we have 299 million people, and maybe, and I'm probably way overestimating, a million leaders. So, I mean, we are wise based on the decision of the smallest part. And look, A person is wise if they base their judgment on knowledge. But then there's many kinds of knowledge. A citizen isn't, or a city isn't wise due to its knowledge of carpentry. No, it just means they have a lot of carpenters. All right, a city is wise based on knowledge of the whole city. You judge a city based on those who know how to best run the whole, and how you run your city internally, and how that city relates to other cities. The guardians, those few leaders, the guardians of the city, make the city wise. And they're the smallest group. We found wisdom. What about courage? It's easy to find courage. I mean, courage is just based on how well a city fights and defends itself. Courage preserves what is handed down to citizens via education. Citizens are taught to learn what is right, what is the best, as best we can figure it. And courage preserves this. And no pain, no pleasure, no desire, no fear will cause the person to drop when education has taught that person is right. All right. Preserving what education has awakened is courage. So we found wisdom, we found courage. Well, where's temperance? Well, as we've said before, temperance is a kind of harmony and concord between the three leaders, or the three groups. We've got the guardians who rule the city, the auxiliaries, there would be the army, the police, the fire, you know, the force that support the guardians, and then the rest are what we call the mob. Now, the mob will go nuts, but the guardians hand down rules to the auxiliaries. The auxiliaries make sure the mob limit their desires, or to control their desires, so instead of being drunken sots, they're carpenters. So instead of going off and philandering, they work as shoemakers. That is, the guardians and the auxiliary follow the ideas of the guardians to cultivate a healthy mob. And if all three agree on their part, the mob agrees to be ruled by the auxiliaries agree to be ruled by the guardians, then we have temperance. This is the statement mastering oneself. But to master oneself is it's kind of dumb, because it implies if you can master yourself, you can be slave to yourself. Think of the sex-crazed individual. They're letting a natural desire control what should control, and that is their deliberative or their reason or their wisdom part of the psyche. It's, again, interesting to note, Plato never uses the same word twice to describe the same thing. Sometimes the spirited part, sometimes it's a courage part, for that part that wills the body to work with reason. Sometimes he calls reason reason, sometimes he calls it the deliberative part, sometimes he calls it wisdom, sometimes he calls it knowledge. Again, he wants to get at the experience, not the words. He was very much afraid of the new technology called the written word. So anyhow, we found courage. So anyway, we found courage in holding the laws of education, what education has taught us right. We have found wisdom in that the smallest part rules. Temperance is letting all the parts do what they're supposed to do and agreeing to allow this to happen. It is mastering yourself. And if you can master yourself, you can be slave to yourself. So wait a minute, think about that. If you can be master of yourself, and likewise then you can be slave to yourself, there must be a good part and a bad part to the soul. So if the good part manages the bad part, you're a master of yourself. If the bad part manages the good part, you're a slave to yourself. You know, bad company, bad upbringing allows the bad mob part of the city to overwhelm the smaller or the wise ruling class. The city is called slave to itself. The city is intemperate. The city we're building is a city that masters itself. The desires of the worthless many, the mob, are controlled by the decent few. A city ought to master her desires, pleasures, ought to master itself. That makes a city temperate. The rulers in those rules agree who should rule and who should follow. Temperance exists in both groups, in all three groups. This makes temperance a kind of harmony. It makes everybody in the city kind of sing the same song. So here we go. There's wisdom, the smallest part rules. The auxiliary follows wisdom to cultivate a healthy mob. The mob agrees to be ruled by the auxiliaries. The auxiliaries agree. They all sing the same song. Where's justice? Where is it? Come on, Socrates said. You can imagine the circle. We've been hunting around all along for justice. Well, where is it? Then Socrates goes, what ninnies? What a bunch of ninnies we are. It's right here. It's kind of an old schoolyard phrase. Justice is minding your own business and not meddling in the business of others. If the guardians rule, they're minding their own business if they're naturally fit to rule. But if a member of the mob, say a shoemaker, decides he wants to rule, he's not minding his own business. Therefore, it would be an unjust city. Justice is each part doing what it's naturally fit to do and doing it to the best of its ability. Now, justice allows wisdom, courage, temperance to arise in the city. Now, it's hard to tell which virtue is most important. Wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice rivals the three of them. I mean, you know, just imagine if one of these craftsmen or another moneymaker decided to be a general or a guardian. He's just not doing what he's naturally fit to do. What if you're on an airplane and one of the passengers, who is a plumber, decides he wants to fly the plane and goes up and kicks the pilot out? He's not doing what he's naturally fit to do. Again, this naturally fit to do is not a small thing. So meddling between the three classes in the city, if a mob member tries to be a guardian, we've got an unjust city. Now, if this matches the individual soul, we've got it. Because remember, just a minute ago, we said the people make the city, but then the city and the ways of the city make the next generation of people. Well, this is a soul. See it? You ever seen a soul? That's what one looks like. Right there. That's a soul. But notice, we all have a wisdom, a knowledge part, a deliberative part, kind of a thinking part. And then we have a willing, spirited, courageous part that will support what we think and stand up for what we believe in. And then we all have desires. Oh, multitudes of desires. As Socrates says, the desiring part of the soul, to try to kill a desire is like cutting off the hydra's head. You cut off the head and two more sprout. This is the largest part of the soul. This one's a little smaller than desire, but bigger than wisdom. But looky here. If the spirit sides with wisdom to cultivate healthy desires, Plato was not about getting rid of desires. I mean, he had a desire to be a philosopher. Desires can be healthy or unhealthy. They're healthy if they are managed properly, just like in a city. So here we found justice. A just soul is one that allows wisdom to rule, spirit supports wisdom to cultivate healthy desires. Here is our just soul. Here is what he calls the aristocratic soul. In the etymological sense, he who is ruled by the best. That is segment 9. In segment 10, we'll finish book 4 and move on to book 5. Thank you very much for watching. Let's make Socrates a part of our daily life. Thank you very much.